The Mamiya 645 Pro was a late-stage film camera. What I mean by that is that it had the benefit of a century or more of film camera research and development supporting it, but it also bore the cross of industry economics that had shifted to planned obsolescence and upgrade cycles. Professional cameras suffered that less than did their consumer counterparts, but they were not immune. And the Mamiya 645 Pro shows some elements of that mindset in the construction, with a greater reliance on plastic components for the parts of the housing and buttons and shutters that have, unfortunately often, failed with time and use. These are weaknesses that arise from a changed mindset in the approach of making something, a change that had been from building for generations toward, initially, accepting a failure in exchange for future earnings, and later in a change toward, in generally the case of other camera tiers, planning a failure and banking on future earnings. To me, the greatest disconnect between a camera maker and the photographer, and I mean a real, honest-to-goodness photographer, is the approach to the work product. A true photographer wants to create an image that will convey a moment, concept, thought, or emotion to an audience, and to have that image hold up well over time. The true photographer wants to see their work succeed and withstand. I found during my time using the Mamiya 645 Pro, my mind wandered often to my creative voice, that very voice that wants to see something of mine withstand. I thought often about how I define my creative voice and the hopes and aspirations that I have for it. There exists inside the photographer that creative voice, a voice that gives sound to the vision we seek to feed through our work. Our creative voice, ever present, says to us, "I am here, beside you, and you are not alone." When we embrace that voice, when we seek to eliminate the noise and churning nowness of today, when we focus on that near silent little sound and give to it action through our work, then we have begun down a path of photographic creativity and expression. But beginnings are only that, and through photography and through creativity we must continuously listen and work to encourage and embolden that creative voice. Photography, a case could be made, is the most valuable of art forms. Photography uniquely captures a moment and allows anyone who can see that recorded moment to witness, experience, and participate in it. Witness. That word, more than any other, summarizes the nature of what a good photographer can be. The type of witness, passive or active, cruel or compassionate, stems solely from the active intent of the photographer. A photograph does no more or less than reflect the innermost desires and thoughts of the photographer, even those desires and thoughts unknown to that photographer. If we learn to listen, to hear what our voice says about our own work, we can hear it shouting at us our successes and failings, our strengths and flaws, and our goods and our evils. At its best, when we are at our best, photography is a compassionate and active witness, a megaphone to that tiny, squeaky creative voice that allows it to broadcast to a wider audience, to announce its perspectives and observations for the world at large. But that world is a void, empty and absorbing, uncaring and ever impatient for the next instant when a new image or distraction arrives. Giving our creations to it, while the only thing we can do, is simultaneously the most futile and optimistic act of the creator who ever hopes that their work can improve something for someone. A photograph becomes one when it has something to say. To me, the highest calling of a photograph is to say the same thing that I believe the feeling and expression of love should say. In The Red Hand Files, number 103, Nick Cave summarizes this better by far than I could. Love says softly, "I see you, I recognize you, you are human, as am I." A photograph should say to its subject the same thing, that the subject is seen, recognized, and loved. Most of us will never in our life take a true photograph that achieves that goal. I would argue that I never have. That should be impetus, however, to continue to try and to strive to attain that objective. What we can do, what we must do to be great at our art form is to listen always for that voice, that tiny, creative squeak ever present within and around us. The successful photographer gives that tiny voice volume, approaches their subject with compassion, and in doing so delivers to an unreceptive and uncaring void a created product with the hope and aspiration that for someone it makes a difference, for someone it improves a life. Our photographic journeys are like road trips that lack maps, guides, and often those helpful white lines that keep us from going into the ditch beyond the shoulder. Pursuing any creative art is like driving an unlit country road with only one flickering headlight. Creativity and exploration of it make no promises. No promises for success, to reach a goal, or even complete the journey. The only promises you will ever be able to hope can be kept are those you make to yourself. So make a promise to yourself and aim to keep it, that you will find quiet, that you will listen for your creative voice, and that you will seek ways to give it a presence through your work.